すっかり遅くなっちゃいましたね。
How's it going, everyone? My name is Michael SK, and welcome back to Chaos Child. It's really late, even so I'm sure this episode, just like all the others, will be released in the morning, which is late enough for me. But in the last episode, we found out that there was a murder, not a Return of the New Generation Madness murder, but just a normal murder. And it was a second-year student at our school, which is always really, really fun. And there's this whole deal about how Arimura was pushed down the stairs, most likely, and now she's kind of bandaged up in some places, like her knee and her arm and all that. So that's also really good, and I feel like these two things are going to connect. You know, why else would they be brought up in this side route, or whatever you want to call it? I'm sure something is going on that's not related to the plot that we got out of the common route. I'm sure it's just something totally different. I don't know what the hell is going on with the main plot. I guess it's just gonna disappear because we're past one of the days that the New Generation Madness falls on, the 23rd, and I don't know if anything happened. Maybe, maybe not, I don't know. But let us read on and see whatever else happens. Also, we did get some glimpses to the past, and now we know for sure how Arimura got her D-sword. Basically, her family is just full of liars.
考えてみれば、もう11月ですもんね。そういえば復興祭って来週でしたっけ？
Even in this case, and the last one, had nothing to do with the other murders. I was starting to think that maybe that didn't mean that the Return of the New Generation Madness was over. At first, I thought that Hidoriko was responsible for all of them. No, I'd only been convinced of that because of the terror I'd felt after being attacked. But after I'd calmed down, it felt like there were things I couldn't explain if she was doing this on her own. And there was that underground lab too. If an organization big enough to make something like that lab was involved, Hidoriko might just have been the tip of the iceberg. Unfortunately, the police hadn't gotten any useful information out of her, so there was no way of knowing if she was connected to something bigger or not. Even if she was responsible, we didn't know why she'd committed her murders on the same days of the New Generation Madness. Was it some kind of message? Was it to make it more sensational? Either way, if there was something bigger behind her, we'd already been a target once. Maybe we couldn't relax just yet.
もう。
Suddenly, someone grabbed both of my cheeks, bringing me back to my senses.
さっきから話してるのに全然聞いてない。
ごめん。なんだっけ？
だから復興祭、一緒に行こうねって話です。
一緒か。
もう、約束ですよ。
Damn, they really got close. She let go of my cheeks and then gently rubbed them. I felt kind of embarrassed.
それじゃあ、私はあっちなんで。
送っていこうか。
There was that murder yesterday, and then the thing with the stairs before it. Of course, I was a little worried too, but as a man, it was time to show off.
大丈夫です。ちゃんと人通りの多いところ通っていくから。
でも。
I know what that sound means. She licked us. Suddenly, Arimura leaned up, and I felt something soft on my cheek. By the time I realized it was her lips, she had already pulled away.
アディオスグラッシャー。
Our boy is becoming a normal man. Before I could say anything, she'd smiled, said her goodbye, and vanished into the crowd. I was suddenly overcome by the idea that she was going to vanish forever. I drove the unpleasant thought from my head and headed home, feeling just a little excited. I could still feel a soft warmth on my cheek. October 26th, 2015, Monday, that is still today, the same day. Just like she promised Takuru, Arimura Hinae stuck to the busy roads on her way back. She remembered Takuru's face when they'd said goodbye. Ah, yes. Truly the face of a lovely man. He was probably scared himself, yeah, but he was holding it in and pretending to be brave. Anybody could see he was just pulling on an act. He was easy to figure out. And that made Hinae feel at peace. Everyone was hiding their true feelings, their truth deep within their heart. There was nothing true in this world at all, and that's what she thought that day. Never tell a lie. Well, you fucking told one like the morning of the other day, like, you kind of, well, I guess you didn't lie, per se, but you didn't really tell us the whole truth about how she was pushed down. Just saying, ooh, I tripped on stairs. Come on. Everybody lies, and I think I said this a few episodes ago. It's human nature. Her brother had been the one who taught her that, but he still didn't tell her what was really important. He didn't tell her the truth. So where was the truth? That was the question she'd been grappling with for the last 6 years. A friend she'd made just recently had asked if she wanted to see her brother. What? Hinae had almost never talked about herself, but she'd been talking about her family. And then her friend had asked her. She didn't know why, but the question had surprised her and she nodded yes. She didn't hate her brother for lying to her. And even if she did, he was gone. Because on that day, she'd left him to die. He kind of told us to, like he was gone, man. Like, he was buried and there's blood everywhere. I'm assuming his lower half was crushed. So instead, she felt guilty toward him. If she could meet him, she wanted to apologize. The crosswalk sign turned red and Hinae stopped walking. Even at night, Shibuya was crawling with people. With this many people around, she thought it wouldn't be easy for someone to attack her. As soon as the traffic light turned green, the car started to move. And then... oh man, not again. Someone pushed her hard and she staggered out onto the street. The headlights were bearing down on her before she even had time to think. When she finally opened her eyes, the car bumper was just a few centimeters from her face.
Oi, 大丈夫か? 何やってんだよ。危ねえな。
The people waiting for the light started to make a fuss. The sound of a dozen car horns echoed off the sides of the buildings. But Hinae didn't hear any of that. She was only looking at one thing. It was the place she'd been standing a moment ago. Just before she'd almost been hit, she looked up and seen them.
Oni-chan.
Well, that's not good. It was her dead brother, Shingo. Are you sure about that, though? Like, are you 100% certain on that? Time to investigate. I looked at the clock, and it was past 3 o'clock a.m. That's been me sometimes. Actually, like, almost every night recently. The summer vacation without, like, any responsibilities has been really killing me. I'd started looking around to see if there was any new information on the case, and the next thing I knew, it was really late. But I didn't end up finding anything new, and as I read, I ended up focusing on something else. It was an article about how a company called Koshin that was involved with the Restoration Festival had put up security cameras all over town and been subject to a lawsuit. Wow. The situation had gotten pretty complicated, and by the time I'd finished reading, it was really late.
さすがに寝るか。
It wasn't true that caffeine stopped you from getting sleepy. I always drank caffeine before bed, and I was always able to sleep. Actually, I've done the same. I'm pretty bad with soda, kind of like Takuru. And I talk so much shit too. But no, I've drank soda before, and I was able to go to sleep super easily, but I think it's because it's that late, and like you're already tired. The caffeine isn't gonna keep you up that much. But what I have noticed is that if you're kind of like not on your sleep schedule and you're trying to go to sleep earlier and you drink caffeine, there is zero way you're getting to sleep. Like, at least for me. I've tried it. Stupidly. It does not work. But when I opened my fridge to get my late night Mountain View, I realized I had a big problem. No Mountain View, huh? Yep. I had forgotten that I drank my last bottle yesterday.
しょうがない。我慢するか。
Just drink water. Or so I thought, but... Once you found out that you couldn't drink something you wanted to drink, it became an obsession. That's just human nature. Caffeine was addictive. Maybe I was undergoing withdrawal. But the convenience store I'd have to go to in order to get the Mountain View was a bit of a walk from here. In the end, however, I couldn't defeat my own desires. I went out into the city late at night to get my Mountain View. Now that's the determination for the drink, man. That's also an addiction. After I had succeeded in purchasing several bottles of Mountain View, I took one and opened it as I stood outside on the sidewalk. It's like an alcohol addiction. You just can't have enough. My body felt like it had been purified. Just as I thought that now I'd be able to sleep, I suddenly remembered all the murders that had happened so far. And here we are out in the streets, just waiting to get killed. I suddenly felt afraid of the situation I was in. I was in Shibuya in the middle of the night, in a place that was almost empty at this hour. Sudden fear gripped me and I started to run, only to trip on something. Evidently, I'd run into a trash can. That's some Persona 4 shit right there. There usually wasn't a trash can here. I felt a dull pain where my body had hit the ground. I hadn't been holding the bottle tightly, so the cap on the Mountain View had fallen off, and the bottle was leaking. I sat up and stretched out my hand to grab the bottle, only to touch something else. It wasn't a plastic bottle. It was softer, like clay. I slowly looked up. Oh, dude, what the fuck? What I saw made me gasp. It wasn't a trash can. It was a laundry basket with wheels. At first, I thought the thing that fell out from inside was a mannequin or something. It was strangely cold and a little black. But the soft feeling against my skin and the way its eyes were open told me that it was no mannequin. It was.
Huh?
Leave it to Takuru to, like, yeah, a dead body, to come across something like this. Maybe, it may not be the common route, but he's still, you know, running into trouble.
であるから、この場合、テンピーは。おい、今何時だと。ああ、宮代か。座れ。
な、宮代ってさ。
知ってる知ってる。またでしょ。ちょっとすごくない？いくら空前だからって。
静かにしなさい。授業続けるぞ。
Was there like another death from the school?
聞いたよ。
な、昨日の話、早く聞かせろよ。
After I found the body in the alleyway this morning, I called the police. By the time they were done questioning me, it was almost lunchtime. I hadn't slept a wink last night. But I was feeling so tense that it didn't matter. The whole school had heard about how I'd found a body, and I could hear people talking about it as I passed them by. I could understand why. This was the third body I'd seen, or I'd been the first person to discover. I might have been the only person in the whole wide world to discover 3 bodies in just over a month. At this point, the police were less surprised than they were annoyed.
言っとくけど、あれは僕が自分で探したわけじゃないからな。
Kirisu had come to see me too, along with Ito and Sarika. I made sure she understood the real story.
わかってるわよ。でもどうしてあなたばっかりそんな現場に。
ほんと持ってるとしか思えないよな。
伊藤くん、前にも言ったわよね。人が亡くなってるのよ。不謹慎でしょ。
と、こりゃ失言。
でもタクもすっかり有名人だね。
別に僕が何かやったわけじゃないけどな。
そうよ。それにこんなことで有名になったって仕方ないでしょ。それはそうだけど。
で、被害者は？
それはまだわからないらしい。
The police had said that there was nothing on the body that could help them ID it. All they knew was that it was a man in his mid-40s.
なるほどな。ってことは、やっぱあれとは無関係か。
かもな。
This case was the one most similar to the Return of the New Generation madness. But given the victim's age and the date of the murder, it was hard to say if it was related. It was too early to say for sure, though.
それで、どんなだった？
どんなって？
だから死体だよ。ネットで見る限りはめった刺しだったって話だけど。
暗かったせいではっきりしたことは僕もわからない。ただ触った感じからして死んでからそこそこ経ってるような感じではあった。
タク、触ったの？
転んだ時にたまたまな。
マジか。で、どんな感触だった？
ゴムみたいな感じだな。なんかグニュッとしてて意外と硬くて。
もう二人ともいい加減にしなさい。そんな話聞きたくないわ。
Yeah, this is kind of like messed up.
聞きたくないならどこか行けばいいだろ。
それは。
それとも本当は気になるんじゃないのか？
そんなわけないでしょ。
I kept talking with Kirisu for a moment before someone came over from the door.
有村。
宮代先輩。
Arimura looked really tired.
どうした？わざわざ。もしかしてお前も事件のことを聞きに来たのか？
事件のこと？あれ？ひなちゃん知らないの？タクまた見つけちゃったんだって。殺人現場。え？
From the look of things, she really didn't know. Given how many friends she had, that was a little surprising. From the way the rest of the school had been talking about it, she should have at least heard something.
有村さん、どうしたの？なんだかいつもと違って元気がないみたいだけど。もしかして私たちがいると言いにくいこと？いえ、そういうわけじゃ。
じゃあどうしたんだ？
Arimura still still seemed like she didn't want to talk, excuse me. But eventually she slowly began to speak.
実は私、昨日襲われて。
襲われた？
マジかよ。
襲われたってことは命を狙われたってこと？それで大丈夫だったの？
Everyone started to ask questions.
昨日って僕と別れたあの後か？
はい。あの後すぐスクランブル交差点で。そんな人気の多いところで？信号が赤に変わって待ってたらいきなり背中から突き飛ばされて。
Pushed from behind. That was the same as what happened before. Which meant that it wasn't her imagination. Someone had really pushed her.
それで怪我は？もう少しで引かれるところでしたけど、なんとか。怪我もすりむいたくらいで。警察には行ったの？まだ。どうして言わないの？それは。
Because the person she saw was her dead brother, she fell silent as if it was hard to say. Someone had pushed her out into the street and in a busy intersection. She was lucky to survive. She could have easily been killed. And since it had happened twice now, it was obviously an attempt on her life. But she hadn't gone to the police. Was there something she couldn't tell them about?
とにかく警察に言うべきよ。なんなら私が一緒に。あ、いえ。有村さん？実は。
Before she could say something, the door to the classroom opened. Who is it now? Oh no. Oh no, dude. It was Detective Shinjo. The whole classroom started to murmur at the sight of a strange man.
ああ、落ち着いてくれ。怪しいもんじゃない。
Yeah. He looked around the classroom until he found us and then walked straight over.
ここだったか。
まだ何か。
いや、今用があるのは宮代くんじゃなく、君だ。ちょっと来てもらえるか？
Shinjo was looking in the direction of...
私ですか？
Arimura. But why?
君まで来る必要はなかったんだがな、宮代くん。
Nah. We're important to her now. Shinjo said as soon as we entered the room. But that was what Arimura had wanted. She'd wanted me to be with her when she went with the police.
もしかして君たちは、いや、いい。今は関係のない話だ。
Shinjo seemed like he wanted to say something when he saw the two of us, but now wasn't the time.
まあいい。同席を認めよう。どうせ遅かれ早かれ、第一発見者である君の耳にも入るだろうからな。単刀直入に言おう。有村ひなえさん。君には今からすぐに警察へ来てもらいたい。
警察にですか？
そうだ。
どうして？
落ち着いて聞いてもらいたい。
I had a bad premonition.
今朝方、渋谷の路地裏で発見された他殺体は当然知ってるな。
はい。宮代先輩が。
そう、彼が発見した遺体だ。その被害者の身元が特定された。
It couldn't be.
被害者は
Oh no, dude.
有村光一郎。
Oh.
君のお父さんだ。
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, was it her brother? Like she got pushed by her brother and now her brother was like, killed. But then like who killed her brother? But okay. So from what it's looking like so far, her brother is walking around, perhaps, and he's like getting revenge for something? Shinjo took Arimura to the police station, and she didn't come back. I waited for her to get in touch with me, but not only did I not get a call, I didn't even get a text message. Of course, her father was dead, and he'd been horribly murdered. I can understand why. And I had no idea that the body was Arimura's father. Of course, I had no way of knowing. So even if I couldn't help it, I still felt ashamed of having been so excited.
ごめん、有村。許してくれ。でも、知らなかったんだ。
Arimura's dad was dead. I'd never met him, but he was the closest I'd been to any of the murder victims. And yesterday was the same day Arimura said that she'd been attacked. What was going on? Was she the next target? But then who? I remembered what Arimura had said this afternoon as she left the room with Shinjo.
とにかくそういうことだ。今は混乱しているかもしれんが、一応いろいろと話を聞かなければならない。それからできれば遺体の確認もお願いしたいんだが、頼めるか？
はい。
That's gotta be like really difficult to do.
玄関に車を止めてやる。悪いが、ついてきてくれ。
有村。
兄ちゃんだわ。
え？
やったのはお兄ちゃんよ。
有村。お兄ちゃん。
I'd heard her say it clearly. Her brother was the killer. What did she mean? I'd heard that her brother died during the Shibuya earthquake. Or did she mean another brother? Or maybe he was actually alive the whole time? The more I thought, the more confused I got. Eventually, I just fell into restless sleep. I'm trying to think of like why, if her brother was, you know, walking the streets, alive and well, totally wasn't crushed by fucking pillars of building, like why would he be, you know, getting his revenge? I guess I can understand the parents, you know, they were kind of toxic and they were liars, but so was he. What did Arimura do to deserve to get targeted if he was going out of his way to get revenge in his newly found life? 4 days had passed since her father had been murdered. There had been no new developments in the case. All we learned was that he'd been killed somewhere else and then his body had been dumped there. Well, that's always good. Shinja wouldn't tell me any more than that, and neither would Kunosato. Arimura hadn't been back to school since then. I tried to contact her several times, but she never responded. Her father was dead. It was easy to assume that she must be depressed. But still, the words she'd said.
やったのはお兄ちゃんよ。
I couldn't get them out of my mind. What did she mean? For the last 4 days, I'd been feeling kind of weird. Arimura had said that she was attacked by someone at Scramble Crossing, and that was the same night I'd found her father's murdered body. Several other things had happened too. Arimura had almost been pushed down the stairs, and a second-year student at Hekiho had been killed. You know what? Yeah, what was that about? That seemed kind of, not related, but maybe it's also related? I'm not exactly sure. The student's name was Ishide Moe. She hadn't come to school often, and she was something of a problem child. From the photo I'd seen, she was a young girl with huge twin tails. Why had she been killed? Oh my god, it could have been an accident. And what did it have to do with the return of the new generation madness? There was also that headless body that was burned to death. They still didn't know who it belonged to. I didn't know if it had anything to do with the other murders, but it still felt like something awful was creeping up on us. Okay, well, that kind of made it obvious that Arimura was almost killed, but nope, it was someone else. I looked at my phone, still no word from Arimura.
もう一度連絡してみるか。
Just as I started to put her number out of my call history, or pull her number out. Knock, knock. There was a loud knock at the door.
なんだ。
It was almost 11 o'clock at night. Who could be coming here at this hour? Probably Gen. Was it my turn next?
部屋だ。来るな。来るな、来るな。来るなよ。
There had to be some way. Was there some way to fight back?
そうだ。
My power. I had my power that we've kind of neglected for this route. It was no good. Damn it. She told me not to use it, and so I hadn't. But if I'd known things was gonna happen, I would have practiced. The knocking at the door grew even louder.
開けてください。
Oh. Now I heard a voice.
開けてください。
Huh? That voice.
有村。
I quickly went to the door and looked outside and saw Arimura frantically pounding on the door with tears in her eyes. I quickly opened it and let her in. Well, she doesn't look all that great. Something was wrong with her. She grabbed me, shaking.
どうした有村？
私追
追われてるって、まさかまた襲われたのか？
She nodded again and again.
でも追われてるって一体誰に？
兄です。
Hmm.
本当にそれはお兄さんだったのか？
確かに兄でした。間違いありません。
After I'd given her something to drink to calm her down and heard what she had to say, she told me that it was him for sure. Her family's condo had been destroyed in the Shibuya earthquake, so now they lived in Kanagawa. Her father's autopsy had only been completed yesterday, and then she'd gone back there. The funeral was today, and afterwards she'd come back to Shibuya with her aunt and uncle. The police had asked her to come back down to the station one more time, where they'd question her about her father's relationships. On the way back home, she'd felt someone watching her. Ah, that's always good. And when she'd gotten near a construction site, some of the building materials had gotten loose and fallen down on top of her. She'd been watching her surroundings carefully after all that had happened, and just barely seen them in time to duck out of the way. But when she'd looked up, she'd seen him. It was her brother, Arimura Shingo.
だから父を殺したのもきっと。
でもお兄さんは亡くなってるんじゃないのか？あの地震で。
And that's what she'd said.
でも生きてたんです。生きて私に復讐しようとしてるんです。
復讐？どうしてお兄さんが有村に復讐するんだよ？
Yeah, that's the biggest question here. Like, why?
それは兄は私のせいで命を落としたから。
Arimura had been out during the earthquake, she said. Her brother hadn't realized that she was gone, and he'd entered the condo building to save her, only to die when it collapsed. I could tell Arimura blamed herself for that.
でもそれっておかしいだろ。
No, there's no way. Like, I'm sorry to say, but if he's blaming her for that, like, that's stupid.
どうしてですか？
Like, I can understand the revenge that he would want to get on the parents. I don't condone it, but I understand why he would feel like that. But for Arimura, definitely not.
だってじゃあどうして有村の父さんをお兄さんが殺す必要がある？
それは父が家族を裏切っていたから。
Arimura didn't tell me how he'd betrayed his family, so I didn't know what had happened. But that didn't change the fact that what she was saying didn't make sense.
仮にお兄さんが生きていたとしてだ。そもそも生きてるなら復讐するっていうのは妙な話じゃないか。
それは。
だろ？助かってたなら復讐なんてすることはないはずだ。第一、お兄さんは有村のこと大事にしてたんだろ。だったら恨んだりってのも変じゃないか。
でも私は見たんです。あれは確かに兄でした。お兄ちゃん、どうして。
No matter how much I tried to persuade her otherwise, Arimura kept insisting that what she'd seen was her brother. Was it really him that she saw? Even if it was someone who looked just like her brother, that didn't explain why they were attacking her, let alone why'd they kill her father.
そうだ。有村、僕は君に謝らなきゃいけない。
謝る？何をですか？
知らなかったんだ。あれが君の父さんだったなんて。それなのに僕はあんな風に。
ああ。
だから悪かったって。
いいです。別に気にしてませんから。
It felt like she wasn't trying to make me feel better, but she really meant it.
それに私自身よく分かってないんです。父が死んで悲しいのかどうか。
I don't know if I read that right, by the way.
有村
Like, it's not
不思
that
議な
late.
くらいに分か
I
らないん
can't
ですよ。
blame it on me being
自分で
tired
も
or it being late. My sleep schedule is awful still.
父は私にずっと嘘をついていました。そんな父を私は多分ずっと許せないでいた。だから心のどこかで当然の報いだって思っている私がいるんです。もちろんだからってあんなむごい死に方をする必要はなかったって思いますけど。
Since she didn't tell me, I had no way of knowing what lie her dad had told. But I could imagine that whatever it was, it left a big impression on her. If nothing else, it was enough to affect her power as a gigalomaniac. I went outside and stretched, and I can feel all the bones in my body popping. That's what would happen whenever I got off the bus after I would take a fat nap on my way home, or on my way back to my car. My commute's silly. I drive to an airport in order to take a bus to get to university. So, the bus ride back to my car so I can drive home, I usually take a nap. Not when I'm driving, but when I'm on the bus. And every time I get off that bus, man, just like Takuru, all the bones in the body popping, the creaking, probably stuff breaking here and there. Who knows? It was still just past 8. Even at this hour, I could hear people playing basketball at a nearby court. Arimura had ended up sleeping in my bed. After all that had happened, she was mentally exhausted. Even for me, it didn't feel right to wake her up and send her home. And she'd been through such a scare. I decided to let her sleep. And so I'd ended up trying to sleep on the tiny hard floor, and mostly failing. I decided to go wash my face at the nearby fountain when the phone in my pocket began to vibrate.
電話
It was from Kunasato.
どうしたんですかこんな時間に。もしかして何かあったんですか。
なんだ。朝から随分とご挨拶だな。
Well, you're a rather rude person, so it fits. Sorry. I would have reacted the same way to anybody else calling at this hour.
例の事件について、新庄刑事から入ってきた警察の見解を教えておいてやろうと思ったんだが、必要ないならいい。
ちょっといいなんて言ってないじゃないですか。
I could tell that she wasn't joking. She was really about to hang up on the phone. I quickly tried to stop her.
その情報とやら教えてください。ぜひ。
まあいいだろう。まず、ニュージェネ事件になぞらえた一連の事件についてだが。
She meant the first 4 murders up until Watabe's death.
ハイダリコと呼ばれる女による単独の犯行では、説明がつかない部分が多々あると考えているようだ。
つまり、他に誰か共犯がいるってことですか。
あるいは、ハイダリコ自身は放火事件だけで、他に関しては一切関わっていないという可能性もある。
If that was true, it would mean that there were multiple people involved, and the real killer hadn't been caught. Or maybe whatever organization had built that lab in the basement was responsible. Which meant that Arimura and I couldn't feel safe. No, Arimura had already said she'd been attacked. But...
それから、お前たち2人も疑われているぞ。
Of course.
まさか、僕と有村がですか。
聞いていなかったのか。お前たちと言ったんだ。他に誰がいる？
どうして僕たちが疑われなきゃいけないんですか。
柿田の事件、渡部の事件に続き、これで3つ目だ。いくらなんでも偶然が続きすぎているというのが警察の考えらしい。
でもこれまでの件については僕たちは容疑から外れてるはずじゃないんですか。
こ これまでの事件はな。だがそれ以降の事件となると話はまた別だ。先日の被害者は知っているな。壁法の2年の
石田萌ですか？あんまり学校にも来てない生徒だったってのは聞きましたけど。
そうだ。どうもその娘は有村ひなえに憧れていたらしい。
A big fan.
有村に？
According to Kunasato, who was getting her information from Shinjo, of course, Ishida Moe had been a very quiet student in middle school who didn't really stand out. At school, she would mostly sit in the corner and read books. Arimura's name had shown up in her diary. Arimura was always cheerful and friends with everybody. Arimura had spoken to Moe too, and that had evidently made her very happy. After that, Moe had decided that she wanted to be like Arimura. She copied Arimura's hairstyle and started going downtown, where eventually she fell in with a bad crowd and stopped coming to school.
だからって、そんなの有村には関係ないじゃないですか。
Oh man, I just remembered a really bad doujinshi. It's a popular one. It's I won't talk about it anymore.
どんな些細なものでも関連がありそうとなると結びつけて考えるのが刑事という人種だ。それに原因は有村ひなえの言動にもある。
有村の？
先日の聴取で有村ひなえは言っていたらしい。死んだ兄が生きていて自分を襲っていると。
それは僕にも言ってました。
そういうところが情緒不安定と考えられているらしい。それが事件に関与しているせいだとも。
そんな、あんな事件に何度も出くわせば不安定にもなりますよ。
Several of the victims had already been related to her. And of course, the police had noticed that too.
それでお前の目から見てどうなんだ、有村ひなえは。
ちょっと参ってるみたいです。
そうか。まあ注意して見ておいてやれ。どうした？
あなた、本当に久野里さんですか？
どういう意味だ？
だって久野里さんが僕たちの心配をしてくれるなんて。
お前命拾いをしたな。これが電話でなければ今すぐ叩きのめしているところだ。
Yeah, that's Kunasato, alright. It really was Kunasato.
とにかく有村ひなえの動向には注意していろ。パニックを起こした人間は何をやらかすかわからんからな。
That was all Kunasato said before she hung up. Kakita Hironori, Ishida Moe, and Arimura's dad. In the sense that she was the first to find the body, there was also Watabe. It was true that too many of the victims were related to Arimura. Maybe it was natural for the police to suspect her.
先輩。
She must have woken up. Arimura smiled in relief and ran over to me.
起きたらいないからどこか行ったのかと思っちゃいました。
Arimura still didn't look great, but she seemed to have calmed down since yesterday.
ごめんなさい。私いつの間にか寝ちゃってて。
いや、それはいいよ。ただ、どうするこの後。
帰ります。おじさんやおばさんも心配してるだろうし。
そう。じゃあ途中まででよければ送ってくよ。
Can we just walk her all of the way so like nothing else happens? That seems to be the issue here. It's happened twice now. Even if she calmed down, I didn't feel safe sending her back alone. She must have felt the same way because she just nodded.
それにしても日曜は人が多くて嫌になるな。
ですよね。
あ、そういえば知ってるか？この前伊藤のやつが。
I tried to keep up as much meaningless small talk as I could while we headed towards Arimura's home. Even with all the murders, it was still the weekend, and there was only a week to go until the festival. The whole town was in a state of excitement. And for all the wrong reasons, or at least in the common route they were, it was a good thing for us. Arimura was gradually starting to smile again, in fact.
伊藤先輩、そんなことしたんですか？
あいつにも困ったもんだよな。
先輩、そろそろこの辺りで大丈夫。
No. No, we aren't doing this. Suddenly, Arimura froze.
お兄ちゃん。
Oh no.
Huh?
I quickly spun around, but I didn't see anyone.
有村。
いや、お兄ちゃん。
落ち着け有村。お兄さんなんていない。
I grabbed her by the shoulders and I could feel that she was shaking.
でも今そこに。
All I see is the Shibuya 107. There's no man here. She was pointing at a mannequin in a store window. There was nothing else there. Okay, well, she's crazy.
とにかく帰ろう。家まで送っていくよ。
Gorsh. November 2nd, 2015, Monday. Now that is a time jump. Well, I guess not really. Oh, I guess it had been 4 days since October 26th, which would put you at the 30th. Or maybe 31st. And then, I guess now it's the 2nd? Okay, whatever. Okay, we're gonna end the episode here. Ya boy is, not tired, but ya boy feels pretty good. And I don't know what that means, but I guess we'll see what else happens. I guess we'll figure out what's going on with Arimura, because she's definitely seeing something that we're not. So that really brings up the question, who's committing these murders? Definitely seems like Arimura's family is being targeted. That's redundant, what I just said. The Arimura family is being targeted. So eventually, there's going to be some sort of face-off, I'm assuming. But face-off against who? That's the question I got. And I'm sure it's the same question that a lot of people have. Maybe, I don't know. But we'll wrap it up there. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this episode. If you did, leave a like, subscribe, all that fancy jazz, and I guess we'll see what happens next time. Hope to see you guys then. Take it easy.